Hi, hello, good evening. Or sorry, it's not evening, it's actually day, but I cannot see you clearly. If it sounds a bit like clickbait, it is. Um, I started thinking about what I could describe from my career, and I went from embedded engineer to agile train or Scrum trainer, agile consultant, and I wanted to share with you a piece of mindset that I believe works great when implementing any sort of transformation. Anybody in this business is effectively a consultant. Anybody in this business is effectively trying to talk to somebody on the other side, whether it's a developer, a CEO, somebody approving budget, somebody being there to give you some sort of yes, no, maybe. And what you are doing is you're always driving towards some goals, some targets, and something along the way. Tonight, or again, with the lighting, sorry for that. Today, I want to convince you that you shouldn't do that you should completely abandon goals and just focus on the current, focus on the here and now. And if that sounds a bit like a counter, something went wrong, can you hear me still? Okay. If that sounds a bit like counterintuitive, that's great. Now, I want to leave this talk out of three main topics. The three main topics here should be, well, change management. I'll try to add a bit of a personal story, and I want to talk a bit about the favorite person of mine probably you never heard about. So one of the most influential therapists in the world that always is a great source of inspiration for me. So first off, a bit about myself. Well, I started, believe it or not, as a rocket scientist. So literally, yeah, I'm a weapon engineer, and my specialization is guidance, navigation, control. So that sort of was not very humanist approach. So then I shifted to Sulke for the first time, and I started doing embedded. So counting bits and bytes, doing all sorts of things you would want to do there, fiddling with Linux, fiddling with its kernel down the hood. Fun times. However, I discovered that what actually inspired me was having leverage of working with people, because I could do only so much as an engineer. However, if I would be able to enable companies, if I would be able to enable teams to be a tiny bit more successful, that would have a compounding interest, that would have a snowballing effect, that would literally make quite a difference in the long run. That wasn't enough. So I went down that path a bit further. And yeah, I went full coaching mindset. That went well. And I spent years now in training to become a Gestalt psychotherapist. And as of March this year, I'm under supervision. So quite the journey. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. The thing is, I'm interested with people, and I'm interested with some of fundamental things that are already present in our knowledge base. We are where we are because we are standing on the shoulders of the giants, as Newton used to say. I'm afraid that in our IT community, and especially with the new practices, sometimes we are rediscovering something that was already present. Just when you think about it, the term site reliability engineer comes from mechanical engineering, and that was the original inspiration for it. There were people making sure that your platform, whatever it is, be it an oil rig, be it refinery, be it some sort of machinery, runs stable and runs smooth. Nothing explodes, if you will. Maybe final thing, something that influenced my thought process quite a lot, especially on the sustainability part, is I'm a dad to a wonderful young princess. But a bit about the change management. Now, typically, when we talk about the change, we envision a goal out there somewhere. And we exclaim, or somebody exclaimed that, hey, that's our goal. We want to get there. Let me not get up the stage high. learn that I have to move between the cow and the spotlight. So typically, you will get this as some sort of external given factor. This is our goal. And then you typically think that you are somewhere along the way, and you trace your course. You basically create a roadmap of sorts. Anybody here ever was doing some sort of road mapping of implementation, getting towards the goal? Okay, so pretty standard. I see a couple of hands there. And then you have to deal with that whole thing. You have to climb that mountain one step at a time. Probably you will have somebody along the way, whether it's an agile coach, whether it's your superior, whether it's your team lead, tech lead, architect, whatever. But they will instill some KPIs, some OKRs, some ABCs, and some vanity metrics. The moment that any metric becomes a target that you're chasing, it's rendered absolutely useless. The moment that you're basically trying to understand what's going on based just on one number and try to fiddle that number to be right, you are playing the system. There are famous examples, of course. One of the most famous ones being a big company in the US. Measuring performance of their developers by the amount of lines of code they could develop. Well, all of a sudden, everybody adopts KNR style. Why? Because it's bulky, it has extra lines of code, extra white spaces, bracketing all over the place. But back to our point, what if, you have your goal, you have your roadmap, but you discover that fundamentally the landscape around you has changed, and it has changed significantly. Whatever. ChatGPT just arrived to the scene, or AI this, AI that, or there's been a leak, as we heard, or whether it increases or decreases the value of your company, whatever happened there. But what do? Do you still go with the following roadmap? Typically, the answer is yes. And typically that hurts quite a lot. And typically that's where we get into that sense of just running the hamster wheel, where people get demotivated. They are, just trying to survive another day, just trying to meet yet another metric. Anybody here has metrics that they don't understand why they have them, and they're trying to navigate so that they can have their bonus. Okay, I don't believe you. I see a couple of hands, so thanks for your honesty. But what typically happens? Typically, you have a time frame, a year, a quarter, a month, a week. It passes, you do your best, and then you're scrambling to understand what you did and how can you represent your good work with those metrics. So how can you translate what you did to somebody who will actually give you some sort of performance bonus or a green light or more credibility within the company? Again, anybody guilty of that? I personally am. It ends up in a bit of reshuffling, re-navigation, and yeah, change is hard. And that's the idea of this talk. The change, yes, you can. And what I want to say is that if you adopt this mindset, it could help. But maybe you shift gears a bit to talk about my personal example and how I got into this field of therapy, and what it meant for me. So a couple of years ago, 4, 5, 6, or something, doesn't really matter. So let's say 5 years ago, it's hard to track time. I was on top of the world. I was tech lead in a startup. I had, opportunities around me. Everything was great. However, I was miserable. I was burning. I had this huge gaping sense of hollowness and solitude, and I basically couldn't do anything about it. That's what got me into therapy in the first place. That's how I discovered Gestalt, because as an engineer, probably the closest to my mind would be something cognitive behavioral, but I went like full force, full bananas. Why not go somewhere completely esoteric? Why don't go somewhere where I feel challenged the most? So for me, that was Gestalt. That was borderline esoterics. And the big thing is, I cannot say what changed, but over the course of next 2 or 3 years, it not only changed, but it got me to want and learn more about it. So I'm able to replicate that change inside of the others, inside the organizations that I'm dealing with. That's what got me into, covering some sort of the differential exams I needed, got me into education again, and so on and so forth. And maybe best summarized, what really was the one concept that I'll try and bring forward is about Arnold Beiser. So, an amazing person. You Google him up. There's his book, there's his movie, Flying Without Wings. But in short, this guy was amazing. He had wonderful life going on for him. He was amateur tennis champion. He was lieutenant in the American Army. He was medical doctor. He was well respected. And then all of a sudden that all got taken away from him. He was one of the last polio victims. He got polio, I believe, something only like 2 years or 3 years before the vaccine was discovered. And he ended up being first completely quadriplegic in iron lung. However, over the time, he was able to regain some of the control. And he became an educator, a psychotherapist, and one of the kindest and most influential people out there. His idea and his treatment of his own condition was that only when he fully, not only accepted his predicament, but really embraced it of, as he said it, so his words, not mine, being a cripple, and when he internalized that, he was able to move forward. And he phrased precisely the paradoxical theory of change. As long as we are navigating towards some sort of the goal, what we are doing, we are escaping from the current reality. Typically, we are thinking of goals not to be in the present moment. That's wishful thinking that's never going to happen. Why? Again, the person that's going to realize that goal is not going to be the same person that you are today. The goal that you are trying to catch, in the best scenario, even if you able to achieve that goal, would be a wish of somebody who doesn't exist anymore. It's basically like living up to dreams of your parents or whatever. And that was precisely what was going on with me. I would set up a clear list of goals, a clear list of priorities, a well-defined career, a well-balanced life, and I would go with the list. And yeah, I would basically be living under the pressure of my previous self, somebody who doesn't exist anymore. And that made me frustrated. And when I stopped dropping one at a time the pieces of puzzle, when everything started going in place, I was able to start cultivating the change. For me, accepting that, in all honesty, I'm a bit of a loner. I don't love people as much as I believe I did love them beforehand. I'm a bit of an introvert. It's not easy for me being here speaking to you. I'm a trained extrovert, thank you. But, it's nothing of this comes natural. It's willpower, time, effort. But accepting that allowed me to really extend the hand forward, where I saw that it was really authentic need to connect to those selected few, like one of them somewhere standing in the background. And out of that would come the needs that are really essential for my well-being. Out of that would come the needs that really made my life worth living. But how does this, again, translate back into the organizational space? Well, try and focus understanding where do we stand. Let's try to think of DevOps not as something that's transformational, not as something that's out there to move us to the higher place of existence. Let's try and think about something, a mindset, if you will, that is there to make us aware and accountable. And by the way, that's my mantra, just as simple as that: awareness and accountability. You can boil down all the metrics, everything that's out there, into awareness box. And accountability is finding the people that will find that data somehow useful, that will consume them, that will feel the pain of that data if it exists. So we heard in previous talks, and I was inspired by this, leak your company's data so you get some extra profits. Somebody should care for some points of the system that you're trying to navigate. And that's how the change is cultivated. The change is not one big bang. It's not about trying to be somewhere and, just scrambling your way forward. It's more about small steps, more about realizations and authentic movements out of that. So when I consult clients, this sounds a bit like mumbo jumbo, but in consultations, what happens often, I get asked, so what's your strategy of change management? And I really honestly say that I don't believe in change. I'm not in that business. I'm in business of awareness and accountability. I don't know your business better than you do. I'm here to make sure that I find the right people who I need to talk to. And typically I get the leverage just by being a consultant. That helps. And also I make sure that somehow I try to visualize some of the data in a different way and try to raise the awareness. Believe it or not, that's all you need. Nothing more, nothing less. Changes will start happening. I see that everybody is off very, very quiet. So I don't know if I'm completely missing the point or am I on point exactly. But again, on the more practical side of things, we can talk about first principles. So first way of DevOps, the whole concept is just getting things out there, getting things as fast as possible, getting everything tested, getting automation in place. It's just, again, it's making you aware of how your flow to production is going. It's making you accountable of what you deliver, or making your developers accountable of what you deliver. Second way, again, that's pretty self-evident. You're trying to understand what's going on with your production and to nail it somehow in place. And if you find the right people, and that's what we believe in Agile, that we believe in people and their interactions over tools and processes, that's more than enough. So there's no one size fits all. There's no, this elaborate super duper solution that will work out of the box. It's about context. It's about the field of effect, as we like to call it, in Gestalt space. But first time I was doing this, I got a feedback not to get carried away there. That's something that's an excellent topic an excellent beer topic. Now, quick question again. How many of you here has beautiful metrics, wonderful helms showing tons of data in novel ways that nobody uses? Honest? Thank you. Love you for it. That's the point. If nobody is consuming your data, you're not helping build awareness. You're not finding the right accountable people. You are not able to produce value. It's basically, I'd rather censor myself. I don't want to quote pearls on this one. It's basically vanity metrics. It's industry standard. It's DORA related. It's everything peer approved, but it doesn't hold value in your context. Whether it's because people that you're working with don't believe in it, whether it's because maturity is low, whether it's because maturity is too high and those metrics are already long gone, it doesn't really matter. It's not there. You're not living the here and now of your company. You're basically living some sort of a dream. And maybe as final idea, typically, I feel that I'm also in a business of storytelling. And very often it feels like I need to connect mental models that the person hiring me has to the reality of the company. And very rarely they actually connect. I believe that as change agents, so all of us, and I see DevOps community as probably the strongest technological leverage of change, we are there to precisely help navigate that relationship. We are there to make sure that the mental models that the leaders are forming or the decision makers are forming are coherent with the reality on one side, and we are there to help make sure that the message on what's really going on gets mapped into our ways of working. So before I open for Q&A, I'm not going to quote this in full, but effectively the idea is about human contact. Believing in paradoxical theory of change helped me align better with my clients, whether in individual setup, team setup, group setup, company setup, because by believing that they are responsible adult human beings that have freedom of choice, it's empowering. And when we come to the terms where they don't want to do something or they believe differently, it's okay. They are not idiots who don't know any better. They are, responsible adults who decided to go a different path. And, it's liberating. I don't feel, when I started my career, I would used to tell that I'm an adult kindergarten teacher as a Scrum Master. But more and more, lately, I try to tell that I'm a responsible human being with in contact with another human being that I treat equally. And, if by chance we are able to meet each other, that's beautiful. And if not, that cannot be helped. Rather than adding any sort of QI slide, I would like to keep this one. And maybe, again, if you get out of this talk anything, it's that it's all about awareness and accountability. And don't expect your goal to be the end state. Try realize what's going on and moving off of that. Thank you. And let me see if there's any questions.